humiliated himself again today. The humiliations of Doug just keep stacking up and up and up and up. He's been a complete failure as the Premier of Ontario. His whole response to the pandemic is a failure. His support of the masks and the vaccines are a failure. His policies pretty much everywhere have been ineffective. The legs have been cut out from underneath him. I voted for Doug. Surfer voted for Doug, because we had Kathleen win in Ontario. It was really bad. It was really bad. It was so bad. But this today, the news today, this statement, this single 43-second clip from Doug Ford is so disgusting, so odious, so vile that I just had to make a video on it because I'm fucking sick of this shit. I'm getting fucking sick and tired of conservatives ceding this issue, giving up on this issue, cucking out on this issue, because this issue is important to a lot of the people who vote conservative, to the actual conservative base who are socially conservative in Canada, in the United States. Abortion is something that matters. We care about it. It's a large reason why many people vote conservative or Republican or progressive conservative in Ontario, is because they believe in a right to life for the unborn. They believe that the unborn are human beings with rights, the right to live, not to just be murdered by their mothers on the altar of convenience. But Doug Ford is so willing to throw us under the bus. The people who got him to that position as Premier of Ontario. Now, abortion laws are a federal responsibility to begin with. So I'm not really sure why this is such a big controversy. But let me explain to you what's going on. So Sam Oosterhoff is a member of provincial parliament. So like a state representative in the United States for our American friends, right? He's the youngest ever elected member of provincial parliament. He was elected, I believe, when he was 18 years old. He's 23 years old now. And what he has decided to do, he spoke many times on the abortion issue. He has been probably one of the, if not the most, one of the most staunch defenders of the right to life in Canada. He's spoken at March for Life rallies at Parliament Hill. He's done as much as anybody could possibly do in his position to advance the rights of the unborn. And he decided that he was going to speak at an event called something like Generation Z, how do we win the right to life, how do we get Zoomers and excited about conservative politics and enthused, how do we reach out to them? He was going to speak at this event. It was run by an organization that compared abortion to the Holocaust. That's the controversy. He was going to speak at an event run by a pro-life group that compared abortion to the Holocaust. And this is Doug's reaction to that. See, I don't think there's any controversy there. But listen to the way the reporter here frames this up. And listen to the way Doug reacts to it. It's just disgusting, folks.
I think I have to ask you about Sam Oosterhoff. He has affiliated himself with a group that has compared abortion to the Holocaust. And, it's not the first gaffe that Mr.
Just right there. It's not the first gaffe Mr. Oosterhoff, the first gaffe Mr. Oosterhoff has made. This isn't a gaffe. This isn't a mistake. This is what Mr. Oosterhoff believes in. You might think it's a gaffe because you're a liberal piece of shit who thinks we should kill children. That infants, the unborn, they don't have a right to life. They just, they're just like a bacteria, right? So it's a gaffe to you, but to people like me who vote conservative, it's not a gaffe. It's why we voted for people like Oosterhoff. It's why partly the reason why Doug Ford stands there, because of the social conservatives who voted for him, right? But it's a gaffe, according to this journalist. You know what some of the other gaffes that Oosterhoff has done? One of them 4 months ago was not wearing a mask at an event. See, to me, that's not a gaffe. That's courage. That's having convictions. That's having a spine. That's not allowing other people to control you. It's not a gaffe. It's a young man standing up for what's right. But that's how the reporter frames it. And watch as Doug refuses to stand up for the youngest member of his caucus, who's just doing what he thinks is right, speaking at an event. He didn't say it. Oosterhoff didn't even say that abortion is the same as the Holocaust. The group that he's speaking at has put out this statement. Do you know why they put out the statement? Because it's true. And it's not new. We'll get into that in a minute.
Oosterhoff has made. How many mistakes are you going to accept from him before
how many
you
mistakes?
remove him as the parliamentary assistant to the Minister of Education?
So, see, how many mistakes are you going to tolerate before you remove him from a cabinet post? See, you're not allowed, as a conservative politician in this country, to have a position on abortion. That's apparently a mistake. To be pro-life as a conservative, that's a mistake. You see? What a fucking sick, twisted world we live in now. This whole idea of it came in with Harper, where Harper purged the party of social conservatives, the backbenchers who would step out of line. He purged them out. He said, shut your mouth on the federal level. And on the provincial level, it probably came in even earlier than that. But since then, because people saw Harper was prime minister for 10 years, you know, and he had a majority, the conservative politicians was, oh, we can't possibly have a position on this. We just need to remain silent. You can have your private position. You can have your conscience, your private position, but don't you dare ever try and draft a bill to protect the unborn. You see? That's how it is now. And watch as Doug just cucks. Watch. It's fucking shameful. Shameful. This guy's supposed to be one of the most conservative premiers in the country. Probably supposedly the second or third most conservative premier.
Well, what I can tell you, everyone has the right to believe in what they want. I'm not one to dictate anyone's belief, but what I don't believe in, to compare abortion to the Holocaust, it's just wrong.
It's just wrong.
Nothing should be compared to the Holocaust. That's unique.
Nothing should be compared to the Holocaust. It's unique. No, Doug. The Holocaust is not unique. There have been many genocides throughout human history. Many instances of ethnic cleansing. Some of them in greater numbers than the Holocaust. We can compare this to the Holocaust. You can compare things to the Holocaust. There was a genocide in Rwanda. I'm not sure if you heard about it. There was a Canadian general there, Romeo Dallaire. I don't know if you heard about that. There was that genocide in Rwanda. You know, there was the genocides in Cambodia. You know, there was Mao's China where millions died. There was the Holodomor. There was the Congo Free State with Leopold, and apparently 15 million died there. There was the Mongol hordes genociding people in the 1200s. Like 11% of the world's population died. The Holocaust is not unique. It is not something that's so sacred that nothing can ever be compared to it. And you know, it's not new rhetoric to compare abortion to the Holocaust. I'll show it. I've showed this book before. This is a book I got from my grandfather that I inherited from his library. And this book is from 1981. It's called Abortion, the Silent Holocaust. This is the rhetoric we were using in 1981 It's not even 30 years ago. This was completely acceptable. This is a book that a lot of people had. And in a lot of books from that time period to today, abortion activists compare abortion to the Holocaust or to other genocides. And I'll just show you quickly, just looking at the numbers in 1981 of American abortions. I've shown this before, but it's been a few years. A grim Memorial Day reminder of American war casualties. You see the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and then the war on the unborn. 12 million killed by legalized abortion. In excess of 1.5 million children killed annually. 1973, abortion was legalized. In 8 years, they had killed 12 million children. The Holocaust death toll is said to be about 6 million. In only 8 years of the silent Holocaust of abortion in America, 12 million children were killed. I say it's shameful for the Holocaust to be compared to the travesty that is abortion today, because abortion has killed so many more. In the 30 years since, tens of millions of more children in America have been killed. On average, 80,000 children in Canada are killed each year, sacrificed on an altar of convenience over responsibility. We have so many methods of birth control today, so many methods to avoid pregnancy, so many alternatives, and yet people still choose to be irresponsible and get pregnant outside of wedlock in situations where they say they're not ready. And rather than inconvenience themselves by having to take care of that child that's their responsibility that they created, rather than having to briefly inconvenience themselves by putting the child up for adoption, instead, they kill the child for convenience because it's easy. And Doug Ford, he's defending it. He doesn't want to change the status quo. You're allowed to have your private opinion. Just don't speak publicly about that. It's a mistake. It's a gaffe to defend the unborn. The millions and millions and millions and millions more innocent infants, not even given a chance, killed because we as a society value instant gratification and convenience and what's easy over human lives. That's what this comes down to. And I'm a firm believer that abortion was wrong 100 years ago, 50 years ago, yesterday, today. It will be wrong forever. And when we finally start to look back, when we finally have had enough, we finally say responsibility to the unborn outweighs our own personal convenience, and we finally win on this issue, because we will win on this issue. We will. We will. This killing of the unborn will stop someday. We'll win on this issue, and we'll look back on it. We'll look back at cowardly leaders like Doug Ford, cowardly leaders like Stephen Harper, who let tens of thousands of children be killed and said nothing. And we'll wonder, how did we tolerate it? How did we let them kill the children? How did we let this happen? Tell you, man, just about nothing makes me more sick than this issue. Because every one of those deaths is preventable if people actually were accountable for their behavior. You don't need to have unprotected sex. It's not necessary. We're not even talking about saying you shouldn't have sex out of wedlock. You know, we're that far down the process. Have sex out of wedlock. Just wear a condom. Just take the pill. But it's too much for you. Even though we hand out the free condoms at every college and every university and every health room. Even though birth control is subsidized in many cases by federal and provincial governments. Doesn't matter. People still choose to get pregnant of their own free will, to create a life, and then to destroy it. And there's no excuse. And when conservatives like Doug Ford refuse to go to bat for their MPs and say that rhetoric is extremist, when this was the rhetoric we were using 30 years ago, 40 years ago now, 40 years. You know, it's been almost 50 years since Roe v. Wade. How many more years, how many more children have to die before finally a conservative politician will take a stand? Oh, it's politically unpopular. It's politically unpopular. I don't care. It's the right thing to do. And if we as a society, if so many of us, when confronted by the truth of what this is, which is the killing of children, that's what this is. When we're confronted by that, and if the majority still say no, we want to kill the children anyway, what sort of a society are we? How will we be judged? Not just by God. How will we be judged by the generations that come after us? That look at this barbaric practice, because that's what it is. It's barbaric. It's savage. It's backwards. There's no reason for it to happen. There's no need for it to happen. But we tolerate it. That's where Doug Ford's at, and I'm fucking sick of him. I'm tired of him. I don't see any difference between the sort of values he has. Maybe personally, he probably is against abortion personally, but he's afraid to speak out against it because he thinks it will cost him votes. And you know what? He's wrong, because it's going to cost him votes because he doesn't speak out against abortion. Because the next time this guy's up for re-election, I'm probably just going to stay at home. Surfer will probably stay at home. Because even though abortion is not his responsibility at the provincial level, it's a federal responsibility. I think he has a moral responsibility as a man, as just a human being, to speak out against the atrocity that is abortion. But he won't, because he's a coward and a faggot. And I think he's just humiliated himself, and he humiliates conservatives when he kvetches about this stuff. And just the extra, cherry on the shit sundae of him, the Holocaust, we can never compare anything to that. Buddy, this is a lot worse than the Holocaust. The Holocaust is over. It's done. There's nothing that can be done about it. The people that died in it died. But you know, the children who are being aborted, where in this book it says 4,000 were being aborted every day. The numbers are much higher than that today in America. In Canada, 80,000 a year. They're still dying. What are you going to do to change it? Tell you, man, none of these conservative politicians have the courage or the spine. It's sad. It's sad that it falls to a 23-year-old like Oosterhoff to speak out on these issues, because at least he was raised in a socially conservative household. He was homeschooled. He has some Christian values in him. It's sad it falls to the 23-year-old backbencher, and the Premier of Ontario folds like a little bitch and says, you can have your private opinion, but I don't want to, this publicly, this rhetoric it's wrong. Well, I don't know, 40 years ago we didn't think it was so wrong, but somehow today it's wrong, because abortion, the genocide, the murder of millions of children is normal now. And that's a sad reflection on society. It's a sick thing to see. I won't be rewarding this guy with my vote again. This was the final straw for me. I had said to Surfer before, I said, well, at least some of his policies are better than Kathleen Wynne on hydroelectric, because the price of electricity is so high in Ontario, and other policies. He said, well, at least he's better on these policies. But if he's such a pussy that he's not willing to stand up for the rights of the unborn as a conservative, then I have no time for him. When he allows it to stand uncorrected that what Oosterhoff did was a mistake or a gaffe, it is not. What he did was righteous. And Oosterhoff might be an establishment puppet. He might be just, like every other politician. He probably is. But at least on this one issue, he's doing what's right. And Doug isn't. That's really all I've got to say on this one, but it just pisses me off, man. Something's got to change. And one of these days, I really do think, it might not be in my lifetime, but I think a few generations down the line, we will look back on it and say, how could this have happened? I think history will vindicate my position. I really do. That's all.